Good evening, Barry, and welcome to another episode of Let's Be Perfectly Queer with me, Randy Davis, and my co-host, Justine Diaz. Hello, Justine.
Hello, everybody. How are you, Randy?
I am excellent, thank you. So on tonight's episode, we're going to talk about language and the importance of language in the queer community. So we're going to have a kiki.
Ooh,
speaking of language.
Let's have a kiki.
Yes. So let's get right into it.
Yeah.
And I know our lovely producer, Deanne, sent an article that talked about language.
Yes.
And I like to think of language just like humanity as an evolution.
Absolutely.
And it's funny, I was going to wear a t-shirt on tonight's episode that has my pronouns across it.
Yeah.
And every time I wear that t-shirt, I get somebody asking me why. And my response is always, why not?
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing that I've certainly seen when it comes to the evolution of language is the resistance to it, and I just don't get it. Can you help explain some of that to me?
Again, it's still baffling to me. There is a lot of conversation going on with people, whether it's on the positive side, the negative side, or the I don't know. And that's what I get a lot of, I think, is I don't know or I don't understand. And so I think it's really important for us in the queer community to take that opportunity to educate people on language and pronouns and why we use them. I think one of my favorite things is, when people are like, I don't get this whole non-binary BS. I don't why do they want to be called they, them? I don't understand. What am I supposed to call them then? And I'm like, you just did.
Yep.
Right there.
Well done. Congratulations.
Bravo.
Yeah. I'm just going to dial it back just a little bit because something that I had meant to begin this show with, I fumbled and did not. And what I want to say right now is a huge congratulations to this queen for winning or being named the Simcoe Pride Person of the Year for 2023. Congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah, it was a big honor. I was nominated from my friend Gordon. And you lovely secondly nominated me, which was amazing. Thank you. I appreciate that.
My pleasure.
And I didn't expect to win at all. I just went to the gala, and the other person that was up as a nominee with me was Celio.
Oh,
and
right.
Yes,
right.
Yeah, and it was really wonderful to be sharing that nomination with such a wonderful person because they also do such great advocacy work in our community.
Absolutely.
So it's really important to, I think, highlight every person in our community that really goes the extra mile to make sure that our community keeps going the way that it's going in that trajectory. So
yeah, and you're right. I mean, it's what's the word? It's an honor just to be nominated.
Exactly. Yeah.
And absolutely true. But let's be honest, it's better to win too, right?
It is nice. And I said to my husband Matthew, I said I don't really know how to handle this because I don't win anything. I don't win things. I don't get. You know what I mean? So it was a huge surprise and a huge honor. So I'm very humbled and very, as I said, honored to be.
I find it difficult to believe that you don't win things, but I would just venture to guess that this is just the beginning. Then
I hope so. I really hope so. But there's lots to come. Lots of new adventures coming up for I think both of us in the next little while. So
yes, no, you're doing amazing work, and I'm just so thrilled to have you as my co-host on this show.
Thank you. And I have to say that I can't toot my own horn because I've got my lovely co-host here who's a movie star. So just coming
That's
up
a bit of a stretch. Coming
up on TIFF here. We've got the little movie that you're going to be popping up as the character Carl.
I am Carl in a movie called I Don't Know Who You Are. Yes, it's premiering at TIFF September 7th and 8th.
That's amazing.
Tickets actually go on sale in about 10 minutes on the date that we are taping this episode.
That's amazing. So if you haven't got your tickets by this point, please get them now. And you're not going to miss out because it's a great movie. I've read some of the reviews so far, and I'm really excited to actually see it. So
yeah, I'm excited for folks to see it too. It was a fun experience.
Well, anything that's out of our wheelhouse, right? Anything that's something that's new, but it's also a part of what we do as our platform, as educators, as people in the community who go out and just advocate for whether you're part of the rainbow, whether you're an ally, whether you have disabilities, whether you're HIV positive or negative. It all depends on, what kind of umbrella you're under, but we all have a purpose. We all have our little light that we shine in our community. So
absolutely, yeah. And I was typecast as an HIV positive person who does point of care testing.
Surprise.
It wasn't a stretch for me,
No.
but it was wonderful, a great experience, and I do hope to have the director and star of this production on our show very soon.
That would be amazing.
Once schedules align.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
That'll be cool. So back to the purpose of our show
Yes.
tonight and language. Tell me more about, what do you think are some of the language issues and barriers that folks face in the queer community?
Well, it's not so much within the queer community, because us in the queer community, we're pretty knowledgeable. We take the opportunity, for the majority, we take the time to ask people what their pronouns are. When somebody introduces themselves, if we do misgender somebody and then they correct us, we're not going to be like, oh, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? It's pretty, well known for us in our community, but it's the outside community, the ally community, that's, I think, having the biggest problem with it. I think it's a lot to digest for people when they don't live in it. When they don't see it every day. And a lot of the comments that I get is, why is this narrative being thrown down my throat, pushed down my throat? And it's not. It's just there for your awareness. And, people think there's this gay agenda or this, non-binary trans agenda, and it's not. It's just, we're trying to have representation. We're trying to be seen in the world as human beings, like everybody else. So, like I explained to people, you see, that first kiss in a movie when you're little, and you're like, oh, you see that boy and that girl, and they get together and they have that first romantic kiss, and you're like, but that's not representative for us. It's not representative for non-binary, asexual, transgender, any of those people. They don't see themselves in those roles. People of color, we need more representation, and I think that's why having this open dialogue about language, about terminology, is really important in day-to-day conversation, just to keep people, up and knowing what's happening in our community and how people want to be presented to the world. That's the most important thing. I don't care if you like it, I don't care if you respect it, but respect the person. And if that person is asking to be called they, them, or he, she, or anything in between, then that is what you do to respect that human being. Am I correct?
Oh, absolutely. It's all about, being a good human.
Right.
I have a T-shirt that says "Don't be a dick," and
right.
that's, I was actually at a restaurant in Ottawa this past weekend for Pride, and they've got a plaque on the wall of the restaurant when you walk in that also says "Don't be a dick."
Yeah.
And I think that's the simple way to treat folks. Just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And
that's exactly it. Do not be. What is it my grandmother used to say? I think I've said this once already before. Life is already full of assholes. You don't need to be another one.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's the point? Just be kind to each other. This is how we are going to progress people. If we are kind to one another, if we just show each other a little bit of dignity and respect, then we wouldn't have half the issues that we have right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's one of those things that there's, especially as you say, folks outside of the 2S LGBTQ plus community, there's still that focus on, even in language, binary terms,
yes.
and not seeing the spectrum of sexuality, the spectrum of gender, and just the spectrum of life.
That's exactly
in general,
it, yeah.
right? And I think if more folks could see themselves in that, because I think even a straight cisgendered man isn't necessarily just in that box as well, right? There's all kinds of other shades of gray that go in there, and I think once people recognize that in themselves, mm-hmm. it maybe makes it easier to see that and respect it in others.
Well, even just saying the term cisgender now is becoming offensive to people. To identify somebody as cis, they think that we're equating them as part of the queer spectrum, and we're not. It's a Latin term for one gender, original gender.
Right.
Right? So that's
gender assigned at birth.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. But people are taking such great offense to it because I don't want to be called this, I don't want to be called that. But you're okay to call me this and call me that, but I can't identify you as what you are, a cisgendered man, right? Like why is that insulting? Makes no sense.
No, hey, listen, I think if we tried to make sense of it, we would need more than a half-hour show to do that.
Absolutely.
And even then we wouldn't get there.
No, not even close. One thing I wanted to touch on, though, back what you were saying about just like general conversation and binary conversation. One thing that I find a lot of people have a hard time with is when they're doing group speaking and the way they address their audience, especially when you're talking in a 2S LGBTQIA plus group. It's like one of my favorite things is I go out and I say, hello, ladies and gentle thems. How are you doing today?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's cute, it's fun, but it leaves the room open. If I don't know somebody's gender, I call them they, or I find out their name.
Sure.
Find out a person's name, and then that way, if you have any issue with anybody's, I don't know how to identify them, learn their name. Don't use gender at all. It's that simple.
Yeah, you're right. And I think in situations like that, and I do this all the time, and this again is not something that came natural for me. It's been an evolution in my language, especially since taking on my role at the Gilbert Center as the Gay Men's Sexual Health Coordinator and being more immersed in queer culture than I ever was before.
Absolutely.
And learning these things from my coworkers especially, who have just been wonderful, because I work with, a vast spectrum of folks under the rainbow at the Gilbert Center, which for me has been really eye-opening and has helped to educate me and the language I use. I used to always be very terrible saying, hey guys, what are we doing, guys? And just using that general term. I still hear it all the time, even within our community, and it's like, really? Is that? And so I'm a folks guy. All the folks and y'all.
Y'all.
I'm y'all and
hey,
folks.
Y'all.
And it's like I'm Dolly Parton's best friend, right?
Or how are we doing today, wonderful humans?
Yes, absolutely.
Or I do say ladies and gentlemen and everybody in between. That is also a way to kind of broaden that spectrum for people.
Absolutely.
It's really interesting to say that, though, that like you were saying, as an evolution. Us in the 2S LGBTQ plus community, we honestly, it's been an evolution for us. I still catch myself all the time when I know somebody identifies as non-binary, they, them. I would be like, she. So sorry, they. And I correct myself right away. But again, it's not. It doesn't come overnight. It's like it takes time, it takes effort, but that's all it is it's just the effort that you put forth in that moment to make another human being feel comfortable in their skin.
Absolutely. It's all about creating those spaces where folks can feel comfortable to be themselves.
Exactly.
And you're right. And I think one of the ways that I certainly do that in situations where I'm meeting someone, I often, when I introduce myself along with my pronouns.
Absolutely.
So that, that is reciprocated back when that person said, oh, and I'm so-and-so and these are my pronouns. Then I don't have to guess.
Yeah.
But if it comes to a situation where they don't, I'll ask. Yeah. I've become very comfortable with asking folks, what pronouns do you use?
Absolutely.
And that, again, I get strange reactions sometimes, like, what do you mean? So I have to explain what I'm talking about. But those in the know, especially those that don't use the gender binary pronouns, will almost be, it's like a sigh of relief you almost hear. It's like, oh, I use they, them pronouns, or I use she, her pronouns.
And it does, just to see that spark on somebody's face when you help give them that sense of comfort. Hi, my name is, my pronouns are, what is your name and pronouns?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That just opens that conversation and just, again, gives them that sense of comfortability to be their true authentic self. One thing too that I find that I'm having to really be conscious of, I do a lot of things that involve sex and sexuality, dirty bingos and things like that. And I talk a lot about safe and safer sex practices. I talk about consent. I talk about intimacy and what that looks like. But you also have to understand that there's not a binary to that. So when I'm explaining to somebody or a group of people, if you are a person with a penis having intercourse with a person with a vagina, you know what I mean? Where you're taking gender completely away from the anatomy, because that's not what makes the gender, right? It's people have a hard time even understanding that.
Sure.
But it really does make that conversation a lot more comfortable for people who are transgendered or non-gender conforming, non-binary. You know what I mean? Or like, and a lot of people forget that we have like agender, asexual. We have oh my God, I'm completely drawing a blank here. People who are like, I don't want to use the term hermaphroditic. There's an actual term for it, but people who are born multigendered, right? Like it's we forget about all the spectrum of how people are born, how people present themselves to the world. It's just like you and I, you go out as a cisgendered homosexual man.
How dare you call me cisgender?
Yeah, right. Homosexual man, very proud in who you are, and you present yourself in a way that makes your personality shine. Right? It makes you comfortable, it makes you happy.
Sure.
So, but just because you're cisgendered and you get to do that, why doesn't a person who is transgender or agender or asexual not get to do that?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's why having these conversations are super important.
Yeah, and it boils down to just human rights and treating people with respect and dignity.
Intersex is the word I was looking for.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you.
And just, sorry, I'm going to play with my earpiece. My producer's not going to be happy with me right now. But, and there it popped out anyway. So what's the point? What's the point? Again, as I said before, respect, dignity, allowing people to be themselves, their authentic selves, because that makes that individual happier. That makes me happier. It's all about making the world a happier place, right? We've got enough issues going on.
That really, when it boils down to it, that is it right there, is making the world a happier place for everybody in it. It doesn't matter what walk of life you come from. We all share this planet together. Why can we not share it in a copacetic, loving environment? I am so tired of, so-and-so this and blah, blah, blah. I've literally gotten to the point now where I'm like, I don't care. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't.
Well, that's part of the advantage, I guess, at least from my perspective anyway. As I get older, the older I get and the longer that I have been on this planet, the more revolutions around the sun I've gone through, the less I care about what other people think about me.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I care more about what I think about myself. Yeah. And certainly, it's one of those things, I don't care what other people think about me, but at the same time, I care what you think about me,
Absolutely.
Which is kind of strange. But it's certainly, people that are closest to me, my family, my friends, my husband, those are the people that I care what your reaction to what I'm doing is. Beyond that, meh.
Yeah.
If you've got an issue with me and you don't even know me, then you're wasting your time.
That's a you issue, not
Absolutely.
a me issue. Sorry.
100%.
Yeah, I know. I said the same thing to Matthew. Like, he'll start going on, and I'm like, baby, I love you. Does this affect you in any way? Does this affect me in any way? Does this affect us in our financial situation in any way? Don't want to hear about it.
Yeah.
Okay? So, but like, when it comes to defending our community, that is one thing that I will always do.
Absolutely.
I don't care what you want to say about me. You can call me every name in the book. But if you're going to sit there and denigrate another human being in front of me, I'm not going to allow that to happen.
No, of course not.
And so we have to take the time to stop and stand up to hate speech, correct it, and help people educate themselves on terminologies and proper language. Like even myself, and this was one moment in my life where I felt so horrible as a queer person. I have a friend of mine who is trans, and we've been friends for a while. I asked him one point, I said, if you don't mind me asking, what was your girl name? And he looked at me and he said, I love you and I respect you. And so I'm going to just kind of re-educate you here. If I did not know you, that would be very insulting. Mm. If you feel that you are that close to a person who is transgendered to open up about their life before transition and they want to divulge their dead name to you, then you ask somebody, if you don't mind me asking, what was your given name at birth? And that change of language right there, just makes that person feel that much more comfortable. but also put me in my place. I felt like a heel. Like, I felt absolutely horrible. And I just kept saying to them, I'm like, I am so sorry. And they're like, no, like, we know you didn't come out of a place of malice with that. So, but just so you know, this is how you need to word yourself in future. And that really changed my whole perspective on how I look at things and how I talk to people, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and that's great. I mean, I've had similar experiences, and you're right. You beat yourself up more than the individual that you feel should have been offended, and oftentimes, like, just relax. It's cool. We've talked about it. I've told you how this question should have been addressed, and circumstances around that. Let's move on.
Well, and it's like, I think people get confused too, like, especially for me, I'm a drag queen. I dress as a woman. I do female illusion. That is what I do. Am I female? No. Am I transgendered? No. I am a cisgendered homosexual man, just like yourself, but I'm an artist. But people constantly confuse that with me being transgendered, and I have to constantly correct them. And so, like, they're like, well, I don't understand the difference. Well, a person who is transgendered is a person who was born, and as they were growing, realized they were born in the wrong body. Their mind, their soul does not match the outside. So they transition and to be their true authentic self.
Right.
A non-binary person is a person who does not see themselves in any part of the binary gender, right? They don't see themselves as male or female. And then people misconstrue that with like fluidity or androgyny. And it's a little kind of the same, but a little bit different, where, you know, people who are gender fluid don't necessarily identify as non-binary, right? Just like people mistake gender and sexuality constantly, and that is constantly a conversation that we have. Like, just because you are transgendered woman doesn't mean you can't be gay. Just because you're a transgendered man doesn't mean you can't be gay. You know what I mean? It doesn't, like, it's a lot for people to really understand, and a lot for people to wrap their heads around. But that's why it's important for people like us to be out there in the community to help educate and to give that information.
Well, yeah, and we have a certain amount of privilege, right, in that we can comfortably do that without a whole lot of fear.
Exactly.
I mean, I think we've both been targeted in the past by hate speech and other issues. But at the same time, we are surrounded by family and friends and spouses who are incredibly supportive.
100%.
And that allows us to be able to speak openly and publicly about these issues around sexuality, around living with HIV, and not have those concerns, whereas for many other folks, it puts them in real danger.
Yeah, oh, 100%.
Right? So I think that's certainly one of the reasons why I speak as openly and vocally and have become such a media whore out there, because I really do feel this responsibility to talk about these things, because I can do it comfortably and not have any fear. Some fear sometimes, but not to the point where I'm going to have to worry about, you know, is my life in danger? That's
exactly it. And we were having this conversation a little while ago about comfortability in your groups. So I was trying to explain it to one of my female clients. You know what it's like when you're in a group of women, and you all get together and you all have the similar issues, similar experiences, and you can connect on those similar issues.
Right.
And so you talk about things together that wouldn't normally get talked about. We as queer people, we also do that, and people don't understand why it's important for us to be in the queer community, to be around other queer people, queer identifying people, because there are issues that we have and situations that arise for us that we can't talk about with any other people other than other queer people.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So they get it. And so when we're sitting there and we're talking, it gives us the opportunity to open up those conversations. And when you can get into those really deep, open, like no holds barred kind of conversations, that's the stuff that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I want the nitty gritty. I want to know that I am not the only person that feels this way, that way, or upside down about a certain situation.
Absolutely.
It's so refreshing to know that there are other people out there that are experiencing the same thing that I am.
Yeah. And what's great is that there are resources out there for folks outside of the community to actually get this information.
Absolutely.
Our show being one of them.
Yes,
you know?
absolutely.
I think of Miles and Tyler and their podcast, Our Private Bits.
Oh my God.
I swear to you, folks, tune in, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever your podcasts are. Our Private Bits, Miles Sexton and their partner Tyler do this phenomenal podcast.
Yes.
And what's wonderful is because we both had the opportunity to actually sit and speak with these people, right? And when you're listening to the podcast, it feels the same as if you're sitting around, a table at a restaurant with Miles and Tyler and having these same conversations. And they're just, I haven't listened to their most recent episode yet because it's around suicide, and I need to be in a different mindset than just driving in my car and listening to it. So, but yeah, absolutely phenomenal with great information.
But that's exactly it. It's like these conversations that they're opening up to about intimacy, about their relationship, about the situations that they've been through. Again, that's allowing other people to see I'm not alone.
Exactly.
There are other people out there experiencing that same thing, that same experience that we've all had, but haven't been able to talk about it. So
representation.
That's all it's about. Representation.
Yeah, I drop those names only because they are imminently going to be on our show as well. Yes. We just scheduling
timing. Yes.
And maybe just in the short time that we have left on tonight's episode, I want to hear from you. Who are your who are the guests that you would like to see on the show in the future? Who do you want to talk to?
I honestly,
putting you on the spot.
I want to do some deep diving stuff into some more political aspects of our community. I want to talk to local politicians, MPs, about what they're doing to help solidify safety and education and safer spaces for our community. Because, even though we do have safe spaces, we do have equal spaces, there's still, being in Barrie, it's still not.
Yeah. Do you think the mayor would do our show if we asked?
Maybe. Is it wrong that I wouldn't want him on my show?
Well, I don't know. You're just talking about political folks and somebody that. We'll work on it.
We'll work on it.
We'll talk about that off camera.
Yeah, we'll talk about that later. But yeah, no, I would love to see more people in our community, educators, and not just the 2S LGBTQIA plus community, but in our local community, educators, social workers, people who are doing outreach programs, things like that, people who are really in our community doing the work that is helping us. And then, of course, we want to have some fun people on as well.
Absolutely.
We want to have some fun people on too. We want to talk about
not that those other people can't be fun.
No,
as well,
they can. But that's us talking about serious.
Yeah.
When we need to have a balance of serious and fun and lighthearted. So maybe some local artists, some queer artists, some other local people in our some Indigenous artists too. There's some beautiful Indigenous art around our community, and I would love to see who that artist is. I've been seeing it popping up all over town. So. But yeah, other than that, I just want to have a broad spectrum of people who are going to bring light to our show and just make the information and the wholeheartedness of everything happen.
And this is why you are a co-host. Yay, yay. All right, well, that's it. Time flies when we are chatting.
It does.
Kiki is done for this week, but I do hope you will turn in again next week for another great episode of Let's Be Perfectly Queer with Randy Davis and
Justine Diaz.
Yeah. Good night, everyone.
Good night.